Another episode of the Ultimate Intimacy Podcast. I kind of feel like we've had an all-star week this week, but now we got like the best all-star of all. We have Nate Whitson back on the podcast. You'll recognize Nate from the book that he and Amy wrote together. We've also had him on several podcasts with us previously, and we're excited for today's subject. So, welcome to the podcast again, Nate. Always love having you.
Man, it is totally my privilege. I love being on with you guys, love what you're doing, and really grateful to be here.
Wonderful. So I was listening to a podcast Nate did, I want to say a few days ago, and it was one of the best podcasts I'd listened to, where Nate was talking about how to break bad habits individually. And I thought, God, there's got to be a lot of us in the audience. We do have bad habits. Amy and I have bad habits as a couple, and
Do we?
well, yeah, I think we all do, right?
What
Like,
are they?
I mean, I would love to say we do everything perfect, but we don't. But
No, we don't. But
there's obviously bad habits that are big that really impact life and marriage, and there's maybe small things that more just bug, but or maybe make marriage a little bit tougher.
I this is a real podcast, right? So I'd like, oh, what are you thinking about? I would love to hear what Nick's talking about.
Totally puts me on the spot.
You better share those examples in this episode.
All right, sounds
Right.
put me on the spot. Totally.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you've been thinking about it all, apparently.
Yeah, wow. But anyways, yeah, so in this episode, Nate's going to give us 4 steps to breaking bad habits in your life and also in your marriage. And like I said, the podcast, I'm like, oh, we got to get Nate on. And so I emailed him yesterday and said, hey, here's what we want to do the podcast on. And he was nice enough to say, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, I love it. And I think, again, like we've said this many times now, we've written a book together, we've done some things together. It's like your mission to help marriages thrive and be the very best they can be is something that's just near and dear to my heart. It's close to the ministry. I have a ministry called Get in the Fight that's particularly focused on a Christian man's role in those things. But one of our core principles is to be the best husbands that we can be as well. And so, any chance we get to talk about strengthening our homes and marriages and honoring God with that is something that's near and dear to me. So I love what you're doing and appreciate the chance to be here. And you two are jesting and joking back and forth about like, well, what are these bad habits? Uh, but we all have them, and I think that's the thing that stands out to me is whether it's as an individual or as a couple, there are things that keep us from being our best, right? And maybe they're not like maybe not for everybody listening. It's just this like, wow, we are so far apart. I think one of the things that you guys have done a great job at is like, there's a lot of marriages that are hurting and suffering, but many are doing pretty good, but they just want to get better. And I think that's kind of the approach of this conversation today.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I totally admitted I can name some habits I have. Like after work, a lot of the times I like to sit down and just get on my phone and look at the news, kind of catch up, see what's going on. And I think that's a habit I could do a lot better at. Definitely takes time away from the family and you and things like that. But
More important things to do.
more important things to do for sure. But
Well, I think everyone's guilty of that one, right?
well, and I
We're all
think
on our phones.
we're not trying to say in the podcast that you have to.
Right.
There's a time for that, right?
Right.
There's a time that you need to sit and digest to do those types of things. So we're talking about habits that, are probably constantly taking you away or impacting your relationship or life in some negative way, some way.
Right.
So
And I can think of many, yes.
Well, and so let's do this. Like one of the things that I've really been transitioning my ministry and mission towards is working as a habits and behavioral change coach. And when I say that, it's like a lot of times I think the problem that many of us have is how we approach change. And what I see often, what I've done often is like you hear guys say, I'm just going to try really hard. I'm going to try harder to be a better husband. Or Amy, you go like, you know what? I recognize there's things here, so I'm going to try harder to be a better wife.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been kind of like pitched this idea that somehow if you try harder, things will change.
or
And
that's good enough to try.
yeah, like trying harder doesn't get you there. There's a great verse in the Bible, 1 Timothy 4:7, that says, train yourselves to be godly. And I think that there is this
Yeah.
conversation that we need to have between trying and training. And the difference is completely separate ideas, right? Like I think of like, Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian ever, right? Imagine if he just said, man, my goal is to be a really great swimmer. And his training regimen was simply to try harder
Mm-hmm.
versus
Yeah.
is,
Right.
is that what he did? Is that how he approached being the best or reaching his goals? No,
No,
he was
Right.
like, he was fanatical in his training. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's that language in scripture that teaches us a really interesting clue, you know, that the way we want to approach being the couple, in this case, let's say as a married couple, the way that we approach change in our marriage, or the way that I approach change in my personal life, even in small things like this annoying habit of like, eating my fingernails when I get nervous. I'm like, like I've done that forever. Like,
Yep,
why
me
can't
too.
you change? You too? Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
I totally agree. In fact, I'm going to share the secret of stopping that. So I had that habit of biting my fingernails, and it wasn't until I chipped my tooth.
That wasn't on purpose
And
though.
yeah, but that caused me to be like, oh my goodness, like I
I'm
got to
never
stop
doing it
this,
again.
and I'm cured now. I haven't bitten my nails in years, but you know,
Interesting.
you just need to
That's
stick.
really, what? That's really funny because that's kind of a good lead in to some of the things that James Clear. So James Clear is like kind of like the go-to for behavioral change. His approach would vary slightly from mine in terms of the why behind change, possibly. And I don't know James, so I don't want to speak to him that he's Christian or not. But it doesn't come out in the books. It's really just about how to change, right? The why for me would be because God has created us to honor him and to reflect him in our lives. And so our why might be different, but the mechanics of change, James is amazing and want to use his stuff. But you mentioned one of the four things really that James talks about that we'll talk about today. And he talks about like making it unsatisfying. Like if it's unsatisfying to bite your fingernails, right? That becomes a really powerful tool to change behavior.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is now you didn't purposefully go in to break your tooth and do all of that because that would be a little psychotic, a little crazy if you did. But because it was so unsatisfying, it became something it's like, oh, I don't want to ever do that again. And
Right.
something clicked and change was more possible. And so maybe just for like, we'll back it up and then maybe we can go back and forth with some ideas with, married couples here. But the four things that James talks about, and his book is called Atomic Habits. And again, just want to give total props to him in stealing his information here. But it really is just about how do we help people change? Wherever the source comes from doesn't matter, as long as it impacts your life in that positive way. But he says if you have bad habits, bad routines, bad patterns, as an individual or as a couple, you can learn to break those by making them invisible, by making them unattractive, by making them difficult, or by making them unsatisfying.
Yeah, I love those.
Wow.
Love
It's
those.
very interesting, right? So let's go through and just say, let's just use the phone one that we
Mhm.
joked about in the beginning because that's just like so common,
Oh yeah.
right? You get home from work or work day ends, whatever that is, and truly you just like, I just need a few minutes to veg out, right? But we know that for so many times, what that means is that we're not really present. And 15 minutes of needing some space to just chill becomes the rest of the night,
Oh, 100% in a lot of cases.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
So let's just kind of like just talk out loud to everybody listening because I know that's such a common one for us, right? If the phone is in the way of really being present, then how can we make it invisible? This is the kind of the first way that you might process it. And so everybody that's listening to today's show too, maybe the phone's not your thing, but as we go through some examples, that's how I want you to filter this conversation is how can I make it invisible? How can I make it unattractive to do this thing? How can I make it more difficult to do this thing? Or how can I make it unsatisfying? If you'll literally just like hit pause even and think through your own thing, again, if you're listening to this today, this could really be like life changing, I think,
Yeah,
then.
and I love that you mentioned on your podcast too, it could be pornography, right? Which a lot of men deal with, right? How do I, and these are applicable to that. It
I'm
could
going
be,
to.
yeah, I mean, it could be any bad habit or, how you handle conflict or you're yelling at your kids or something that you want to change that you don't like the way you're doing or an addiction that you have or whatever it may
Mhm.
be. I mean, this can be applicable to so many different things.
Right.
Well, and let's use the phone one. Let's just the three of us talk out loud about the phone. So if the phone is an issue in your marriage and it's become something where like we're really just not connecting, what are some things do you guys think that we could do to make it invisible? What comes to your mind there?
My first thought was turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think couples or just people in general realize how the notifications alone are affecting our dopamine levels. So I noticed over Thanksgiving weekend, I said, I don't want to be checking my phone all the time. We have lots of family in town. I want to be super present. So I muted several group chats and
Nice.
my group me app. I put them on silent. And I would look at my phone hours later and I'd have like all these group chats or whatever. Never heard them, never got distracted by them.
Yeah.
And I think that we don't realize how easy it is, especially moms. We're on lots of different group chats with things with our kids, activities. It's not hard. And a lot of the time, we don't need to be on it that second. It can wait an hour, it can wait a couple hours. And we have this like device in our hand that is so easy to push mute or put
Mm.
your phone on silent while driving, or you can silence it so simply, except for we have to train ourselves to do that, right? Like maybe that's, and I know we're going to talk about boundaries, obviously, not taking them in we've talked about not putting them in their bedroom, stuff like that. But we just have, like you said, it's not about, I want to try harder to not do this. It's about training, right? Like you said, I love that because it's okay. How do we set a goal together to make this happen? And we both come committed and we say, hey, did you turn your silence on or whatever? Should we, 7 o'clock, it's 7 o'clock. Maybe you set an alarm on your phone and like, oh, phones are off for the night. Like we just have to train ourselves to do these things and then it becomes simple, right? And then we don't have to try so hard. After we train ourselves, we don't have to try very hard because it comes easy.
Yeah. Love it.
And that's exactly, I mean, that's you nailed it. And like I bet everybody listening is like, yeah, like good news here. That training isn't really hard. It's
No.
literally putting a mute. It could be just your new training regimen could be I walk in the door and there's a box, there's certain boxes you can buy or just make your own where all devices go into it at 5 o'clock or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? You
Mm-hmm.
can make it invisible and it really isn't that hard, but you have to train yourself to go like, this is the routine that we fall into. You
Yeah.
know?
And I think there's a
Yeah.
physical side to that, and there's also a mental side. And I want to share an example. So every time Amy and I go on vacation, I'm like, oh my heck, how many, we go somewhere and I don't have access to my phone because we're in the middle of nowhere or doing an excursion or something. And I'm like, I'm gonna come back to a bazillion messages. And 100% of the time I get back and I don't have nearly as many messages as I thought I would have. And I wonder, when I'm here at home, the phone's always in my face and I'm always answering messages or doing something, right? And so it feels like I'm so busy where
Yeah.
when we go on vacation, it almost seems like, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Someone's watching out for me, but I don't have that much work to do. So thank you, right? Right. So I think there's also a mental side that needs to be talked about too. That, a lot of it's like how just being able to make it invisible mentally as well, not just physically, I guess, if that makes sense.
That makes so much sense. I actually think it's really kind of a lot of what James was talking about when he talks about making it unattractive. It's really just changing the way that you view it, right?
Mhm.
Like, for example, like let's stay on the same illustration and idea. Changing the way you view it in your mind, this mental component that you're talking about. It's like it's learning to train yourself to go, this phone is a blessing, but not when I get home.
Yeah.
And just that little language, maybe it's just that language of like, this isn't more important than time with my wife or time in front of my kids or whatever you're going to say. Learning to even just give language to it that defeats the lie and makes it unattractive. It's like, I don't want this thing to ruin. I actually, I'm not holding my phone, it's a pen. You know, you want to like
Yeah.
rehearse this idea that it isn't helping, that it's a lie that this is going to feel better or whatever. And that's a simple way of making it unattractive. I think you're spot on there.
I think like for a lot of husbands that are like, I would love to be intimate tonight. All you have to do is look at your phone and be like, if I'm on this,
Yeah.
I'm not being attractive to my wife. What is attractive to a wife is someone who's involved, someone who's hanging out with the kids, who's super present in the evenings, that's super helpful, is a team player. Like that's what's attractive. So just do the opposite. That phone is just taking that away, right? And it goes both ways. It goes both ways because there's a lot of wives that husbands complain. My wife just gets in bed, scrolls her phone all night, has no time for me. We hear that a lot.
Yep, that's
Like
right.
if you I think that it all comes down to making a choice. Like, what do I really want in my life?
Yep.
Do I want to be like, I can't remember the stat. Oh, I wrote it down one day and shared it. At the end of our life, like if we're on our phones, I can't remember the time it was, but like even just 30 minutes to an hour a day, like how that compiled up at your end of your life, you're like, how, or were my relationships strong and was my marriage amazing, or was on my phone for thousands of hours, right? Like I,
Well, and I feel like the devil gets us not with always doing like big, horrible things. I think he gets us with distractions. And
Mhm.
those distractions can look like, I think it's a lot of the same thing as like habits too. Like
For
our
sure.
bad habits or our distractions are the things that at the end of the day are really going to get us. They're really going to impact us in a negative way with our marriage because those are so subtle and they aren't the big things like, oh, I know to stay away from that, but they're the
Mhm.
subtle things that make us lose our connection with our spouse and
Right.
our family.
And the real positive, you're spot on. So right. I think the real positive other side of that is that subtle small changes in training can make a huge impact in the positive. That's
Right.
the real encouraging thing for people listening today is you're like, man, like I'm failing in this area of my life to be the husband I know I'm supposed to be. I'm failing as the wife. I'm failing, blah, blah, blah. And you feel like the answer is if I to change this big issue, I've got to make big changes. And the problem with that is it doesn't work that way. The
Yeah.
thing the thing that I try to teach in the Start Super Small system, which is what I teach people how to go through and build habits and train their way through this, is that consistency is way more impactful than intensity. And that's hard for a man to get his head around in particular, because you're just like, look, I'm out of shape. Like I need to get in better shape. Right? New Year's is coming around the corner.
Yeah.
So it's like I want to get in better shape. Well, I've got to lose 40 pounds. What am I going to do? I'm going to join CrossFit. I'm going to throw out sugar. I'm going to go huge,
Just do
right?
everything at once.
Go everything at once, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You somehow think that you can add intensity to it and it will change your life. And in fact, what it brings is discouragement for most.
Yeah.
Because
Wait, so
when
say
you
that quote again. Intent,
intensity, well, the consistency always outpaces intensity is the idea. So
consistency.
remember exactly what I said there. Yeah, what you want to focus on is like, how can I do? What's the smallest thing I can do consistently over time, even on my worst day? And
Right.
the language of like I'll give you an example when it comes to like exercise. The mantra for most people for change is like go big or go home.
Hmm.
And it works for about 4 days until the muscles start to get sore or life throws you a curveball or you get sick or whatever it is. And then you just fade away. And now you feel like a failure because you've tried this intensity thing for so long. But the guy that stays with and he's like, you know what? Even like on days like where I feel my worst, I can do 5 push-ups and 5 sit-ups. The critic says, well, what is 5 sit-ups and 5 push-ups
Yeah.
going to
Right.
well, nothing. That doesn't change your life at all. But what if over the course of 30 days, I did 5 sit-ups and 5 push-ups every day, compounded, versus the guy who does it when he feels like it 3 times that month? Who wins?
Right.
So you're telling me if I want to go lose weight, I shouldn't go just jog 12 miles the first time and
Day one.
like, oh, that was
I
awful. I'm
lost all
done.
my
I'm done.
calories. I'm good.
Yeah.
Exactly. But we
It's
somehow
true how we do it.
it's exactly how we think. We have to change the way that we think about change. And we've got to create a training regimen that's consistently doable so that your brain goes, oh, that's all it is? I could do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a lot of what the Start Super Small system is. And when you start thinking of these ideas that James introduces, it's kind of like what is the smallest way to impact your marriage? Well, let's just make bad things more difficult and good things easier. Think of that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Exactly.
It's like the simplest way of thinking of change. How do you make the bad things hard to get to, hard to see, hard to be a part of your life? And the good things, how do I make that easier to do?
Yeah.
And if you simply stopped at those two things and just asked that question, you
Mhm.
really could do small tweaks every single day that after the course of a year, you just be like, wow, our marriage is like considerably better. What did I do? Well, I
Mhm.
didn't have to go on vacation and spend money I don't have. I didn't have to like do this wild, extravagant thing. But it's really what you guys teach every single day. It's the consistency of being present and being thoughtful. It's the small things, it's the consistent routines that'll change your life. And that's true for good and bad.
Love it.
100%. So before we jump on to the next one, why don't you share with the audience just like what it would look like to make habits invisible? Like just kind of hit on that a little, give some examples, a little bit more of, as they're sitting there thinking, well, I know I've got these bad habits. What do I do to make this, what does it look like to make it invisible?
Yeah, and really it's for people like me that aren't the smartest tool in the shed. You don't have to overthink this one. It's really just truly about what if it was impossible to see that thing that's in the way, right? How can I make it to where it's really difficult to even have that thing tempt me? This is all we're really talking about, right? It's making it invisible. It's saying, I just don't want this thing to be in front of me. And think of like, by the way, like think about every time you go to the store and what do they do? What do they tempt you with on the checkout line in between? They spend a ton of money
Yeah.
to put the food items at eye level. Why? So they're easier to grab and reach. They spend a lot of money to get that spot because it's very visible as you stand there waiting to check out. The opposite is what we're talking here. How can I remove that and put it at the back of the store in a spot that you never go to? And so again, like people just need to think through that. What is your habit that you're trying to change? What's this bad thing that you're trying to break? And how can you make it where it's difficult to even have it front and center in your mind?
Love it.
So good. I think we already talked about the unattractive one too.
Well, let's hit on it because when I think of unattractive, I mean, if I come out and I'm just, I've got stuff all over my shirts, I haven't brushed my teeth in a few days,
That's never happened, just so you know.
you're gonna be less attractive to me.
That wouldn't be
right?
less. That would be like, yeah, 0.
So you're not gonna want anything to do with me, right?
No, it's pretty gross.
So how does being unattractive relate to our habits?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's such an important question.
Like the word's like, we don't want anything to do with that. That is.
And I would still want you, yes, but I would be like, totally. Go shower first.
After.
After.
I think the idea behind unattractive is again like I'll give you an example of if I were to picture let's say that road rage is the issue, right? And I get so frustrated and I am like, what's wrong with this guy? I'm going off. This is a guy issue and this happens a lot, right? One of the ways to change that and to make that road rage unattractive is to simply flip the switch and go, I bet he's dealing with something really rough right now. Right? It's just simply like changing the way I think about it, that it's like it would be repulsive for me to have road rage against a person who's trying really hard to get home because his wife is sick or the kids are sick, right? Like it's flipping the script in your brain. In terms of like pornography. How do you take this thing that's so appealing and attractive, seemingly attractive, and like, oh, I want to look at this, I want to engage in this. What if you just go, you know what, that's somebody's baby girl.
Yeah.
That's somebody's daughter. What if in your head you're like, there's a parent at home crying their eyes out because she's doing this, right? That is the way that you go, this thing that seemed attractive, that's not attractive to me at all.
That's a great example.
I agree.
Because then your whole brain doesn't it just goes to that is disgusting, right?
I don't want anything to do with that.
I don't want anything to do with that.
Well, and everything you've hit on, I think you're exactly right. If you reverse the roles and try to put yourself in their situation, I was standing in line at the store and the guy ahead of me had to get some balloons or something. So everyone behind me starts complaining and like, what's this lady doing? And normally that would be me like, come on, like, let's get going. But I thought in my head, I'm like, you know what? Like, it's okay. I'm healthy. Like I can wait 5 more minutes. Like this isn't a big deal. And I tried extra hard to like be really nice when it was my turn and ask how her day was and things like that. And my whole point is, and you've already hit on this, is just kind of turn things around, right? And imagine what they're going through or be grateful for what you have. And all of a sudden you can now look at it. And when those people behind me are yelling, which, could have been me. I mean, I'm not like that, but I could be under my breath complaining like, my goodness, lady, hurry up,
We literally talked about this in
Uh,
our very last episode. Like
yeah.
the whole road rage thing we
Oh, did
talked
you really?
about just like realizing that there's usually a plan that things happen and to, embrace that.
But my point is when the people behind me started complaining, I'm like, oh, it's kind of unattractive. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
I don't want to
I
be
don't
like
want to be
that.
that person. Like, that's the last person I want to be. You
That's
know?
right. And the closer that a man and woman lives to their purpose, the easier it is to flip that script. Because you say to yourself, like when you're really living on mission, you're like, I don't want to be that person. And it's unattractive when I respond this way, right? Even if it's a small thing, again, like the biting your fingernails thing, when you start to live within your purpose, you just go, I don't want to be a person that lives outside of control. I don't want to be controlled by anything, even this really minor thing. It becomes unattractive in that way. And so, really, just connecting to Christ and connecting to your purpose is so critical because when you start to see yourself as the kind of person who behaves a certain way and you break that standard, it's unattractive
Yeah.
completely, no matter how big or small it is.
I
Agreed.
love another point you just hit on, and that I feel like when we have habits or things, addictions or things like that, you just hit on a point that, we kind of lose control, right? And I
Mhm.
think it's so important in life to be able to maintain control of our behaviors, of what we do. It really is scary when no matter what we're doing, when we get to a point where we do lose control, whether it's an alcoholic and drinking or drugs or pornography or things like that, because once you kind of feel like you've let it out of your control, so to speak, and it really always is in your control, but
Mm-hmm.
once you've allowed it to take control over, the consequences are so big for that.
Absolutely. There's a scripture that talks about the fruit of the spirit. And the fruit, for somebody who doesn't know it, would just be like the evidence. The evidence of
Yeah.
Christ in your life looks like love, looks like peace, looks like joy, right? Looks like self-control. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
so when it goes through that list here, and again, this is kind of what I mean by living out your purpose as a Christian, in particular for my audience, is the closer you get to that, and the more I live within the confines of that, the more that comes out of me is good, not bad. Right.
Right.
And that's when it becomes easier to flip the script and go like, I don't want to be a part of even the smallest details eventually, like biting fingernails versus pornography. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I absolutely
Oh,
agree.
for sure. Yeah, I was just thinking as you guys are naming some of those things, we have the really big things that are really big and hard and those bigger addictions, but there's a lot of little things like we've talked about. We get a lot of complaints that like women put their kids first and put their friends first and everything else first, or husbands put their hobbies first, or a lot of complaints my spouse puts the pets first, like that I'm guilty of a lot of the time. Like there's simple things. He's laughing, but there's simple things
Yeah.
that okay, I'm not some of these things I'm not going to find my kids or my pets unattractive. I'm not going to make them invisible. But if you can change the mindset to I my husband needs to be so visible in my life. He is so attractive in my life. I need to be attracted. You know what I mean? Like we have to just be really mindful of those things that aren't always bad things,
Mhm.
but good things. We just have to prioritize our time and yeah, I don't know. It's hard because I think a lot of people struggle with really big things and a lot of people struggle with things that we don't think are really big and hard things, but they are definitely hurting our marriage in little ways. And I don't know. Yeah. It's just
The,
important to talk about it. I mean, this is always comes back to communication together, right?
absolutely. And you hit on something, Amy, that I think I want to come back to, and that's training versus trying.
Mhm.
Somebody who goes, I'm going to try harder to be a better wife this month. That's just like it's so vast and broad
Right.
versus I'm going to train each day. And that training involves being just simply recognizing that the pets might be in the way again, or the phone might be in the way, or the whatever's in the way. A
Right.
training is a focused mind and it's a purposeful life versus somebody who's just like, when I feel motivated, I'm going to try hard, right? There,
Right.
again, like we can talk more of it, maybe even further times, but like this concept of trying hard versus training are worlds apart. And when somebody goes, I'm going to start training to be the wife or the husband that I'm wanting to be, you're going to start looking at the little details as critical.
Mhm.
Every amazing athlete that's ever played any sport, there are no small details.
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
will sit there, they'll putt for 4 hours a day. And you're like, dude, you make every one. He's like, yep, but the details matter.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that mindset for us is there are no small details for people training to be great. Changes everything.
Well, I think the difference between trying and training is trying, there's really no game plan, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to try to be better. And I don't, if you were to ask them, how are you going to try? Well, I'm going to try to do this. And you might see some little small glimpses, but 100% of the time it's going to fail. Where,
Exactly.
like you said, training is going to have a specific game plan. What am I going to do to not look at my phone tonight so that I can focus more on my family? What am I going to do to prioritize my husband over the kids? Like, and
Right.
actually say, I'm going to do these things. And then you have a plan and you start implementing that plan. So I think you're hitting it right on the head. If you want to make changes in your life with habits, you need to have an actual plan, and
Yeah.
that plan might look differently for everyone versus, like Nate said, just trying, I'm going to try harder. Trying sounds really good and it has good intentions, but it's going to fail 100% of the time. At least every time I've tried to do something in my life without a plan, I
Exactly.
haven't been successful.
I love that we're talking about training because I'm going to be completely honest. I've never thought about like I'm training myself to have a good marriage. Like that just never crossed my mind.
Mhm.
And our son is a D1 athlete and our daughter is looking into maybe becoming one in the next years too. And the only reason I share that is because I watch their training regimen and it is
It is
insane.
precise.
Like it is 5 a.m. miles, Saturdays, 12 miles. They do workouts, they do body core, they do yoga, they do the mental, they do
The way they
I mean,
eat.
the way they eat, the cut out sugar. They like they're serious athletes. And I have learned a lot from them because I am not one, but I'm like, wow, you guys amaze me. And
Discipline.
you're disciplined and you're teenagers, right? And so I think, wow, you guys are so amazing and stuff. And then I think, okay, I have to give myself a little bit of reward for like, okay, I am actually been training my marriage for 7 years. Like ever since we flipped the script on our marriage and we're doing weekly date nights. We are
Yes.
not going to be on our phones at a certain time. And if we are, we're both going to be doing it and we're both going to be okay with it at that time. We're going to communicate about it. We're going to spend an hour every single night together. We're going to church every single Sunday. Like these things
Exactly.
I've just thought, oh, I'm trying to be a good wife. You're right. Like we have been training our marriage
Nailed
and
it.
that has been life changing for us.
And
So
they
I guess
become habits.
it's habit. And I
Yeah.
guess I've never really like thought of, oh, we've been training our marriage and people like, is it really possible to have a marriage, good marriage, a happy, healthy marriage, a passionate marriage? Yes, it is. And it all literally, I look back and I'm like, it's from training. We have had to implement so many things into our relationship to get
Yeah.
it where it's at and maintain it, right?
Yeah.
Like training never stops.
No, we put schedules in place, and here's when we're
And
having date nights, and
boundaries
here's, yeah.
and boundaries with, yeah, everything.
I love the aha moment that just came because
Mhm.
that's what happens for me too as I study this is like, oh my gosh, like that's what that is. And,
Yeah.
and if you can relate it to sports or whatever you need to relate it to, you recognize that greatness comes through training, not trying.
Mm,
So the question really becomes, do you want to be great at your marriage in this particular podcast, right? Do
Yeah.
you
right.
really want to be great? Do you really want to leave a legacy of passing on to your kids what it looks like to be the best wife in the world, right? To be the best husband, to have a family that's connected to Christ. Like, what is important to you? And you will never get there by going like, I hope that works out.
Love it.
I think the other thing, just while you were talking to point out too, is if we want to improve our marriages, it should be like a team thing, right? It can't be just I'm going to try to do better, and if my spouse isn't going to try to do better, the one thing you hit on is we have been we have said that we're going to do date nights, we're going to go to church every week, we're going to do these things. It's been kind of a we thing. So I think as
Hmm. True.
couples, if you want to break bad habits, it can't just be one of you thinking, oh, you know what, I'm going to implement this and everything's going to change. I think you need to do this together. Obviously, there can be things individually on an individual
Hmm.
level, but I think if you want your marriage to change, it should be something you sit down together as a couple and say, "Hey, how do we retrain or train to what we
Right.
want our marriage to be like instead of just saying, let's try." Because
Hmm.
so many couples, us guilty of it, especially early on, is,
Hmm.
we'll try to do better. And
Yeah.
then 2 days later you've forgotten about everything, and oh, we'll keep trying. And I know that I fell into that pattern rather than, no, let's work together. And what are the specific things we're gonna do to train to be better?
And this is a great time of year to look back at your marriage and be like, okay, a lot of people, they set those goals, January
Yep.
1st, start training, whatever that is. And our marriage is literally one of the biggest aspects of happiness in your life if you're a married person, right? Like your relationship makes all the difference. So with our new You and I app, we created this new monthly challenge. And January, the first week especially, is going to be really focused on goal setting, boundary setting in lots of different areas of intimacy, finances, all that kind of stuff. And so what a great time to do this podcast. Like this is the time to start training, because you can have just a mediocre, maybe not so good, maybe a good marriage. And January 1st, like let's make a goal together to just train to have an amazing marriage next year, and baby steps, right? Like,
And so right. And I will tell people and encourage them this: when you start to get fired up for it, the tendency is to go big again and to go like, we're going to change everything. And I just want to like slow the enthusiasm for everybody that goes like, oh my God, like, yes, let's do this. Pick one thing and start there. And you're
Right.
going to go like, it's the same example of somebody going like, I am all in, like I want to change my marriage. And so now we're going to do this. And guess what? Like by February, you're going to be frustrated,
yeah,
right? Pick one area, go slow until it becomes so routine you don't even think about it, and then add the next.
right.
Yeah.
Love it.
100%.
Love it.
Yep.
Great.
The small things.
I think this is an amazing podcast.
Agreed.
I have learned a lot.
So how do we make them difficult?
Yeah. Difficulty, man, this is so good. What James talks about is friction a lot, and he's so spot on. It's such a great word to think about it. When you have something that's frictionless,
Mm-hmm.
you can almost imagine exactly what that is. It's smooth, it's easy, it glides, it's natural, right? You want your good things to be frictionless, but you want there to be friction. Friction works for you for things that are bad. And let's go back to the store because it makes it a really easy one for your brain. They have made it really easy for you to buy junk food on the way out, right? Friction would be moving it to the back of the store. It takes a little bit of effort to get to it.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to your bad habits, how can you make it difficult like that? How can you make it difficult to access on your phone? If your phone is the problem, how can you keep the phone from you? And they're interconnected, right? Like it's also like being invisible, but it also is another layer of invisibility in terms of like difficulty. How can you make it difficult to access it, to get to it, to be in front of it, whatever that looks like? And again, there's so many scenarios we could run that, it could get muddled, but I just tell that person listening, it's not that difficult of a thought. Just take a second with it. What is your issue that you'd like to break, and how can you make it more difficult? And if you'll simply address that, you'll see some change.
Yeah. Love it.
I do too. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory to most people, how to make it difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Now, the best part, how to make it unsatisfying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if we can make something unsatisfying, like something like, I don't want anything to do with that, we're probably going to be more likely to stay away from it.
I don't think anyone struggles with things that they're not satisfied with, right? Like that's going to take a real mind shift.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And you just like one of the difficulties in our world is that the negative consequences of bad behavior or bad habits aren't always immediately followed by the bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So in your marriage, to stay focused here, every time you neglect your spouse emotionally, it isn't followed by an immediate consequence. And the problem with that is you slowly get into training negatively. It's negative training is where most people are at. They don't even think of it as training, but you've trained your marriage to be neglected for so long that just becomes the norm, and you just learn to adjust around it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so because we don't have negative consequences that are immediate, we feel like the consequences don't come, and they always come. They always show up. And so what we're purposefully doing here is saying, how can I make pornography have consequences quicker so that I don't want to do it again? It becomes unsatisfying again, right? And that might just be like a commitment level to share with an accountability partner as soon as it happens. Like, hey, man, I screwed up again. And, here were some of the things that I was searching for. It would be so disturbing to tell a friend what it was you were looking for, that you would be so disgusted with it. Maybe the consequence of being that open with a trusted friend might just go like, I don't ever want to have to say these things out loud. This
Yeah,
is so
that's a
embarrassing.
great point.
Right? The one that cracks me up that I've heard is like, what if you had to donate to like a rival school that you can't stand so that they're in the L fund, right? Like for me, I'm a Michigan guy, so if I had to donate to Ohio State, I would lose my mind. You know what I mean? But if every time there was a negative consequence and I broke the standard that I set for myself, and as I'm going to donate $20 to help make them a better school,
Oh yeah.
That's hilarious.
Oh, you
right?
get cured instantly.
I
Yeah.
would never do it again. You know what I mean? Like, it's very serious here in the state. So
So
you
funny.
you you want there to be cost. That's really what the issue is with unsatisfying. You want it to cost you something quick enough that you go like, I'd rather not,
Yeah.
right? This is about breaking bad habits, and that's an easier way to think through it. How can I add cost to this that's unpleasant that I don't want to do it again?
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think every couple or individual is different. So find what's kind of unsatisfying to you and put those things in place. Just like Nate said. I mean, it could be something like donate, every time I do this, I'm gonna be held accountable and I'm gonna, donate to
Yeah.
the school I hate or whatever it is. I mean, I think that's very powerful, right? It's amazing how those things can motivate us to not do things.
That's right. And I just tell people again, like, you have to want to change. Like, these are all really cool ideas. Somebody can hang up from listening to this going like, that was neat. But
Yeah.
if you don't do what you learn, it won't do you any good,
Mm.
right? And scriptures are really clear about that too. It's like to just have faith without action or to have an intention without a plan is useless. Like it does you no good to get to January 1st and be like, I want to change my marriage. Cool.
Yeah.
Great idea. What are you going to do?
You
Yeah.
have to do something. Yeah.
Well, and I'm
Yeah.
glad we discussed these things. One of the reasons is because we've seen our son read this book, implement these things in his life, and it's completely changed his life. And so we
Mhm.
know we know with the right game plan, no matter what it is, whether it's losing weight or becoming a better father or getting over an addiction or bad habits or whatever, by implementing a game plan, you can overcome those things. A lot of people just don't know how to implement it, like we've been talking about the whole time, is I'm just going to try. But as we've talked about, if you implement a specific game plan, you can overcome anything you want and have the marriage that you've always dreamed of.
Mhm.
We're a great example of that. Amy's and my marriage at one point, many of you know, I mean, we were at a very, very bad spot and not knowing if our marriage was going to make it. And it was putting together a game plan and doing simple things and holding each other accountable. And
Mm.
now I couldn't be happier in our marriage. And so, it like we've talked about on this podcast, it's not the big things, it's the small and simple things and putting that plan together.
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, it's as just a simple plug to help serve people with it. If you go to getinthefight.club, you're going to be able to see opportunities for even just like a free 7-day trial to walk through kind of the start super small system that I teach, because it really does lead people to go like, okay, I want to change, but tell me what to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we've given some really practical things here about breaking bad habits, but like, how do I learn this? And there's a whole system called the Start Super Small system that they can learn about. Hopefully, in the first quarter of 26, a program will be online where people can learn to do that and then walk them through step by step exactly how to identify the areas of positive change or breaking bad habits that you want to change, and how to put a plan together that's very specific. So if somebody's saying like, just give me the answers, getinthefight.club, they can learn more about that. And again, like just on a free, total free basis, like the Nate Whitson podcast, if they look for that, that's really what the show is about continually, is helping in particular Christian men, but again, women or even those that aren't believers probably would benefit from just conversations about how to build better habits and behaviors and live the life you're supposed to live.
I love it. You're doing amazing things.
Yeah, thank you for all you do. You can also check out the book that Amy and Nate wrote, co-authored together. You
Mhm.
can get that at ultimateintimacy.com. That's another amazing resource, a little bit different than what we've been talking about. But you
Yeah.
can see how great Nate is, the wisdom that he has. We love our relationship and working with him. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. We really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to having you again on here soon.
Appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for all that you do for my marriage and for so many others. And I love being on here every time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So until next time, we hope all of you find ultimate intimacy in your relationship.